Hello and welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror movies and awesomeness. This week we have a very special interlude before we get into our next amazing vampire cycle. This week we're talking about the 1969 sci-fi monster thriller, The Green Slime. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have seen it. So warning, spoilers ahead. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, author of this winter's Young Captain Nemo from Fiveland Friends Macmillan Books. With me from Austin is Tony Salvaggio, tech director at Rooster Teeth, lead singer and bassist of the band Deserts of Mars, and lead guitarist of the band Rise from Fire. Say hello, Tony.
Howdy.
Howdy. From the Rio Grande Valley, David Bowles is a Mexican-American author and translator from South Texas, where he teaches at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. Dutton Penguin just published the Chupacabras of Rio Grande, which he co-wrote with best-selling author Adam Gidwitz, and his graphic novel Clockwork Curandera, illustrated by the Pura Belpre winner Raul Gonzalez, will be published in 2020. Welcome, David.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you back. You are on the road, and we have caught you in a hotel in Austin because you're doing some school visits. I think that is as always super awesome. So welcome. And finally, also in Denver, as always, color commentary from attorney Julia Guzman of the Guzman Immigration of Denver firm. Say hello, Julia.
Writer of op-ed pieces.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Julia had this really well received editorial in Westward today, and they tweeted it out to like their hundreds of thousands of Twitter followers, and with like a big blurb, and it's really pretty cool. So congratulations.
Congrats.
And welcome.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. The Green Slime. The Green Slime is a 1968 science fiction film. Actually, I have 68 and I have 69, so I'm not sure which is correct. But it is a 1968-69 science fiction film directed by Kinji Fukasaku and produced by Walter Manley and Ivan Reiner, and it was written, amazingly, by the Batman writer Bill Finger, the guy who gave Batman all of the definition that we associate with that character, the I shall become a bat and all the background, the sort of the mythical stuff that became Batman as we know it. That was generally Bill Finger's doing, working with some initial ideas from Bob Kane. Sort of an unsung hero. The film was shot in Japan, has a Japanese director and a Japanese film crew, and a completely non-Japanese cast of Roger Horton, Richard Jaeckel, and the amazing Italian Luciana Paluzzi, who people will know from Thunderball and Return to Peyton Place and a bunch of other groovy stuff. All right. After destroying a huge asteroid that was on a rapid collision course with Earth, in other words, the plot of Armageddon shows up in the first 20 minutes of this movie. After that, a group of astronauts discover they've accidentally returned to their space station with an alien slime creature that feeds on radiation and reproduces itself rapidly from its own blood. And they have to deal with how to deal with this infested space station. So, Tony, you brought us this film. I'm so excited to discuss it. This is actually, I'm going to let people in on a secret. This is our second time discussing it. I have watched this movie now 3 times, and I am super excited to discuss it more than ever. So Tony, lay it on me. What are we looking for? If our listeners are there like, well, what the heck is Green Slime? What are we looking for?
Well, the director is also known, Fukasaku is also known for Battle Royale later in his career, and tons of other cool movies. Doberman Cop, Message from Space, which is another co-production that is amazing. Kind of like, hey, you guys like Star Wars, try this out kind of thing. It is insane as well. But for this movie, what really, if you don't watch the movie, you at least owe it to yourself to watch the trailer, because it is one of the best trailers and with the grooviest theme music in across horror, and is also what I sold Julia on, because she was not really digging watching a movie called Green Slime. I said, wait, watch the trailer. And from there...
Well, and I'll tell you that the trailer was both delightful, but also I fell in love with Luciana what's her name?
Paluzzi.
Paluzzi, with her outfit that she was wearing. I was like, oh, I got to see more of this
Hey, she had a
awesome
better
silver
outfit.
pantsuit.
Yeah,
right,
you're
right.
you're
She
not
had a better
alone.
outfit in this film, than she did in the Underwater City. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's true. Oh my God, I can't believe I didn't mention that. Yes, she is the love interest of Chuck
Of
Connors
Nemo.
in
Chuck
Nemo
Connors,
in
of
the
course.
Underwater City. So basically, for like 5 years there, this girl was everywhere, and we keep doing movies that feature Luciana Paluzzi.
I think that's secretly why we're doing it, right?
Yes, yeah,
I mean,
I
that's
think
part of it, definitely. But
yeah.
but in general, I just love these kind of weird crossover productions. It lends a different air to things. And again, the green slime theme, which oddly enough, they thought, I guess, was too funky for the Japanese cut of this movie.
Right,
And
right.
didn't
And
make
it's,
it. And
I
like,
actually watched the Japanese cut of this movie, even though I
what?
didn't have subtitles. Yeah, because I wanted to see after having seen it the other way. I was like, okay, I got to see what it's like without the
Was that just like on
without
YouTube? Like,
the love story or the
yeah,
awesome
they edited
groovy
that out.
disco music.
Yeah.
It was interesting.
what was it on
really
YouTube?
interesting.
Because I didn't see
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
Yeah,
it's on
YouTube.
Oh man, I should have done that. I have the Blu-ray, and the Blu-ray looks amazing, but I didn't think to go back and try to dig it up. Oh, I
It
should
was
have done
fun.
it. Oh, I'll do that after. Yeah, but yeah, I really dig it. I think it's a groovy piece of strange sci-fi horror. Again, like you said, Armageddon came after this. Somewhere, someone was like, "Well, we don't like the alien part, but let's have people go blow up an asteroid with nuclear devices."
Yeah. Let's stretch those 20 minutes into
Right.
2.5 hours.
Yes. Okay, so Tony, thank you very much. Julia, can you give us your opening thoughts? You told us a little bit that the Luciana Paluzzi's outfits are not to be denied, but what are your opening thoughts on the green slime?
I've watched it now a couple of times because we had a couple false starts when we were going to record, and so I wanted to refresh my memory. And I have to say, it gets better with every viewing
Yeah, it
because it's actually really fun. Like just visually, I really enjoy it. I really enjoy the models. I really enjoy the props, the sets. Obviously, like I said, Luciana's awesome silver outfit and all the little 60s mini dresses. I think there's a lot of fun things about it. I love the little Japanese children that are in the monster outfits being the monsters. They're so adorable. It's just so cute. The only thing that I really, really just hate is how moronic some of these people are in this movie, the choices that they make. And we'll have fun talking about those choices. But there were some things that I was just like, oh my gosh, there's no way that I imagine poor scientists or astronauts watching this movie going, that is not how we do things. We would never do that. That's
Right.
ridiculous. Other than that, though, I think it's a lot of fun.
Fantastic. David, you've been flying around the country and you suddenly sit down and you're forced to explain to a listener something super important, which is, what are your opening thoughts? What must they know about the green slime?
I mean, there are actually some really interesting things in the first 20 minutes. I really liked the miniatures. It was a very 60s kind of thing, but there was a lot to love in it, and there was even some interesting dialogue, and the script wasn't too bad. And I think that where things start to go awry is when the goo starts to evolve into these like really really goofy monsters, and people start behaving, as Julia said, in really like nonsensical, like absolutely stupid kind of ways. The love triangle was interesting. The bromance that is kind of sputtered out is kind of interesting as well. But yeah, Elliot, like the whole thing is, you don't want to like Rankin, but Elliot is so stupid again and again and again that you kind of have to be like, neither of these guys is worth a damn. So I enjoyed it. It's cheesy. I loved the opening theme song that was really, really great. I want somebody. There are probably covers of the song because it's cool, and I'd love to hear lots of different iterations of it. I had a good time. It was. I signed up for Vudu to watch it, and because you sign up, you get a discount. So I saw it for like $1. So hey, $1, I could. It's fine. It was perfectly fine.
We rented it on Amazon Prime, and thank you. Ran it Amazon Prime, and it was like $3 or whatever, and it was good for like it was like this extra long rental. It was good for like 20 days or something. It was a really crazy long.
Show it to all your friends and family.
Yeah, watch it several times, and so Richard Jaeckel, who plays Vince, I should mention, is a really interesting guy, and he has a big fan base. So I haven't seen Sometimes a Great Notion. I don't know what that movie is, and I feel terrible about that because there's probably listeners going, "Oh, what's the matter with you?" But he was actually nominated for an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor for Sometimes a Great Notion just 3 years after this movie. So this is an actor who's capable of a great deal. This is not a movie that requires a great deal of him, but he is interesting. I mean, I really so this is my opening thought. I really like this cast. They're all really fun to watch. I'm talking about the main three people, Luciana Paluzzi, who is just sort of a delightful kind of vision all the time. And then, as you said, the sort of weird bromance between Richard Jaeckel as Vince Elliott, who truly, just as Rankin says, consistently makes poor decisions himself, and Rankin, who also probably makes less poor decisions than than Vince, but makes a lot of really boneheaded decisions himself. And what's worse is that he's such a jerk. He's such a complete, he's just an ass to everybody around him, such that you are rooting for him to make even more mistakes than he actually does. He's one of the most unlikable heroes I've ever seen in a movie. And the only reason he's even remotely likable is because he has an inherent sort of charm, and he's good looking, and the movie wants you to think he's great, but he actually makes a lot of boneheaded decisions himself. So it's fun. So given that as the beginning, we will go through and sort of discuss these guys, and I think it's worth asking whether the director of this movie deliberately is trying to create heroes that you think are terrible. So there's that. I also got to mention there's yet another guy. I think his name is Martin. There's an officer named Martin, the XO of the station, who does all the actual work, and he's hilarious because basically between Vince and Rankin, they're always just telling Martin to go do stuff, and he just always just sort of just wanders and does the thing that they say, and that's really wonderful.
I think I'm the Martin of my job. Like, there's got to be somebody who's just keeping things going. Like, as a tech person, that you're just usually like, "Hey, I did things. Is that bad?" Well, it's not great, but I guess I'll go fix it. Thanks. Thanks, guys who get the credit.
Oh,
I don't know.
Tony.
No, it's not that bad. But when you work in tech, if anybody does, you will understand what it's like to be the Martin of the like, "Hey, we're moving and shaking. That's cool, right?" Oh, you just created a bunch of work, didn't you?
Martin, go take care of this.
Man, after your description, it just really hit me.
It's like this moment of realization and epiphany has come over.
You're like, "I'm Martin." You should just, every time you have to wear a name tag, you should wear a name tag that says Martin on it. And people
That'd be
will be
great.
like, "What?"
No one would get it, but that'd be all right. I'll just hum while I'm doing things. I'll just hum the groovy Green Slime.
Green Slime song.
So what I'm of two minds. I want to start out just talking about the relationships in the Green Slime. I know we should talk about the science of it all, but there's something going on here that if you remember, and Tony, I don't think you were on this one, I can't remember, but we talked about the Queen of Blood, which was roughly the same period. And were you on Queen of Blood, Tony?
If I wasn't, I know we've talked about it a lot because I like.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I'm pretty sure. Yeah,
with Basil Rathbone
Yeah.
and Dennis Hopper.
absolutely.
And it's much the same thing. You've got lots of professional men and women in space, and I can't even really decide. I might like Queen of Blood slightly more because I like the monster better in that one, but they're very, very similar. I mean, they're kind of a perfect pair, these two. And what I think is interesting is how this movie and Queen of Blood a little bit, but really honestly, almost any historical film that purported to tell you the story of any sort of conflict, American movies always like to have their officers just sort of at one another's throat. It's always, they're going to sink one another's career. One is by the book and the other takes chances. One got his whole crew killed and the other is not going to forgive him for it. One stole the other's girl. This is all like perfectly normal, and it's amazing to me. It really feels like it takes up the bulk of the dialogue in this film. I mean, what so that I'm just not blathering. Like, Julia, what did you think of this sort of ongoing officer pissing match that's happening between these characters?
Yeah, there was definitely some rulers being pulled out. Yes, they are very. It's funny because on the one hand, it's not that they're unprofessional, really, because when he first comes on, I guess let me back up a little and say how it starts. It starts out that this poor guy Rankin is about to retire, and of course suddenly they find out that tomorrow in about 12 hours the Earth is going to be obliterated by this asteroid, and there's only one man short of Bruce Willis, who is not available, that can go and destroy this asteroid with bombs, or at least he's the only one who can lead the charge. And so they're going to send him out and he's going to go do this. So he has to go to the space station, which is headed up by his ex-girlfriend's new boyfriend or current fiance. And so he goes out, and at first it's very professional. Like, he's like, what's the other gentleman's name? The guy who's the commander of the space station? Vince Elliott, right? So Elliot is ready for, to hand over control. He's like cool about it. He's like, okay, this is how it's gonna be. I've got this hot fiance, and sure, go ahead and dance with her, no problem. Anyway, that's later. And so at first it's fine, but of course it's when the girl shows up that suddenly they're like, wait a minute, let's get the rulers out here, because we gotta,
Yes.
gotta measure some stuff. And it's like, guys, come on, let's go back to the professional, cordial relationship that we had a little earlier before the hot Italian.
Well, let me ask you this. First of all, Luciana is what TV Tropes calls the suspiciously specific denial, when she says, I no longer have any feelings whatsoever for Commander Rankin.
You think she doth protest too much? Right.
I mean, and Rankin.
Whoa.
Go ahead, Tony.
She does seem like she's legit about it.
Yes.
She's just trying to diffuse the whole thing.
Sure.
Like, look, I am still with you. We're out in space. Yeah, it sucks this guy is showing up again, but truly quit worrying. And of course, because he's the guy, and I can attest to being stupid this way, it's like, no, he's here to ruin things. It's like, dude, just come on.
Yeah.
We're
and
cool.
the Lisa character,
but
the Lisa character is really believable. What she's saying rings true, and her actions and her conversations with Rankin, all of it, I think, bears forth this notion that she really has moved on. But Rankin is like, nah, you haven't moved on. Come on.
Yeah,
you still got the hots for me. You don't want to be with this like wussy ass beta male. You want to be with me. That's his attitude the whole time.
Yeah, and Elliot.
Yeah, I mean, he even says
she doesn't look at Elliot and like bite her lip or anything. Like, oh, maybe she's legitimately telling him.
Yeah,
but
you mean Rankin, right? She doesn't. You're right. She's not biting her lip at Rankin.
No. What I'm saying is she doesn't look at Elliot in any way that says, well,
I don't really want you.
Yeah. But
good
I mean,
point.
again, kind of, what we went over before. Rankin's pretty much a really competent Zap Brannigan. So when he's on board, he's like, so, what part of this mission will end in sexy results? It's like, come on, man. We're here to destroy an asteroid. But really, there are
It's like-
asteroids. Other
It's like,
asteroids.
no, my hair really is this perfect in this color.
Yeah.
Those aren't the asteroids I'm worrying about. Like, come on, man.
This guy has the most perfect. I mean, he is like the very definition of what they used to call central casting. He is a square-jawed,
What Donald Trump still calls
perfectly,
central casting.
you know, because the president often uses the phrase central casting when he talks about somebody. So yeah, you know, he's square-jawed. He has these deep crevasses in his cheeks, you know, and this sort of perfect hair, which of course is a completely unnatural shade of reddish brown, and that's okay. You know, listen, I'm a man of a certain age myself, but he's you know, this is the look. He is dead solid perfect. And the funny thing is, his rival Vince is also an extraordinarily imposing person. You know, he's like, you know, deeply buff. He's pretty, you know, and so these two men are competing. And the first relationship we hear about in the entire film is Vince and Rankin. Rankin walks into the general's office. I call him the general. I can't remember what kind of officer he is. Walks into the general's office, looks on the wall. General goes, "Hey, remember that?" And he goes, "Yeah, me and Vince did pretty good that time." So these guys.
Actually, no. He says, "I screwed up. That was when I screwed up."
Yeah. I screwed up.
No,
Right.
no, nobody else
But
blames
it was, you know, but he goes, "Me and Vince were doing good." And so the primary relationship in Rankin's mind, at least as far as the script will have it, is with Vince.
Yeah.
But they are competing, and they are competing always. They're competing like in this girl. They're competing in who's better at commanding a mission. You know, they're competing
and that's a central one. But wouldn't you say? I mean, their command styles. That's at the heart of what the movie is really about, and something.
Yeah.
I mean, like what you're getting.
Tell
at,
us about
and,
that conflict.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So Rankin represents the notion that the chain of command is the ultimate arbiter of everything. If you're given a command, if you're given an order, you comply. And if that command means that people die, that's life, because
not just the command.
No, you're right.
Not just the command, but
the,
also the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the
outweigh
one
the needs of the one of you. Exactly. Yeah. And that's what I was going to. So, I mean, the command structure is so if you're given an order that promotes that philosophy, which is a militaristic philosophy that says, you know, the military itself, the mission, the team, that's more important than an individual who may die. That one person is dying for a bigger cause. And of course, Elliot looks at it the other way around. He's, you know, the individual human life is so important to him that he's willing to risk other people so that he doesn't leave a man behind. And I mean, that's put them in conflict, and it's caused multiple deaths. You know, Elliot's philosophy has caused multiple deaths. And so Rankin straight up is like, there's at one point where he goes, "You want me to just be honest with you about it? Okay, I'll be honest. You are not fit for command. You are a terrible leader. And you know, you just need to like step aside and let me handle this." And we see multiple times Elliot in this movie 3, maybe 4 times makes really bad decisions because he wants to save one person or a handful of people, and it causes more chaos. And if they had followed Rankin's plan, they would have, you know, diffused the situation. They would have sealed off that Section C or whatever the fuck it is. And they would have been able to deal with it. And you know,
there's two major mistakes that Elliot makes. I want to get to Rankin's mistakes in a minute because I don't want anybody to feel like we're not going to hit those.
And don't forget that effing scientist. Don't forget the effing scientist.
Yes, but the two major mistakes that Elliot makes are one, Rankin's like, "We need to kill these things and get them shut away," and Elliot's like, "I want to listen to the scientist and grab one for science." And Rankin, like a lot of these military guys we've heard in a lot of the movies that we've been doing in this past year, is deeply suspicious of that because it's going to get people killed and yada yada yada. And it turns out in this movie that Elliot just happens to be wrong. Actually, there's a million ways it could have gone right, but it goes totally wrong. And he goes, "No, let's try and capture it." And these creatures that develop later on are able to burn through the nets, and so like 6 people get killed right then. And after that, Rankin's not not playing around anymore. The second big mistake that Elliot makes is later when the scientist is crazy and runs in to grab his notes and stuff into a place that's already infested with monsters. Elliot wants to open the doors and save him, and Rankin doesn't want to open the doors because he thinks it's too dangerous. And Rankin turns out to be completely right, because by that time the scientist is already dead, and they never do get the doors shut again once that happens. It's interesting to me how the movie is pretty cynical. I'm not even sure if cynical is the word. It's just sort of recognizing that it's like a zombie movie in the way that almost nobody can get any of this stuff right. And I say all of that because we've just named several dumbass things that Elliot did, but Rankin also makes a number of terrible decisions. Go ahead, Joy.
Well, so it's not just, again, I cannot talk about Rankin or Elliot's mistakes without talking about that effing scientist, because he's such an idiot. And so that guy, they go out. He first of all, he wasn't supposed to go on the mission. He's like begs to go on the mission. He like manages to squirm his way onto it. So he gets to go on the mission. He goes out there. He sees this pulsating green, glowing, globby thing. Picks it up with some tongs. And then goes, oh, wait, there's another green glowy thing over there. I'm just going to drop this one. And he drops it onto
top of my equipment.
Onto his equipment. Just drops it. That's the part where I started to go, oh, my God, seriously, there's no way. So then he gets that other one and puts that one in a container or whatever. And that container, he like brings it back over to the ship when they're getting ready to leave. And it turns out they have to leave much faster than they thought they were going to because of reasons. And so he's like over there and he's got the thing. He's like, I want to bring this alien, this like green globby thing. And then that is
like,
the
fuck
first,
you are. No.
Yeah, but that's the first super stupid idiotic mistake that I think, maybe it's not the first, but it seems like that Rankin makes, is that he goes, no, you're not bringing it, and he throws the glass.
Maybe he's hoping the scientist will chase it.
Yeah.
Like, go over there.
It's all over Rankin's foot.
But the thing is, I mean, the reason they have to leave early is because of the green slime. That's part of it, is it gums up the works, and so it delays their mission. So already he's seen that, the green slime's bad. They're pulling it out of their buggies and everything.
Yeah.
And then the guy's still like, but look, we've never seen this
cool.
before.
It's pulsing.
No, put that the hell down.
Yeah.
I mean, what's interesting about Rankin is he starts out less like he is out to prove, hey, I'm just here to do the mission. We're going to work together, old chum.
Right.
It's not until they get back that it really gets like, hey, who?
Yeah.
Back together. Like, because the whole beginning, he is there. He's like, look, we're going to put aside our differences. Let's get this mission done. We have to blow up this asteroid.
Yeah. And in the words of Godzilla versus the Thing, we're going to save the Earth. And that's,
right.
And there's only like a few hours to do it. Yeah.
Right. And so it starts out, pretty well as far as that goes. You're like, oh, maybe they do. He kind of riffs on a little bit, but they're going to work together until it's decided that they're not. Right.
Yeah. There's a really interesting moment during that initial. I like the fact that this movie thinks about a lot of stuff that they think about even more than you might imagine that you would really need to for an adventure film, which is that, like Rankin, he gets the mission back on Earth. He takes a rocket up to the space station, and then he takes another rocket from the space station to the asteroid. There's multiple like different handoffs. It's all very sort of bureaucratic and functional. It feels plausible. Like, even though all of this is made up, it feels believable because there's so much crazy detail going on. But there's this moment when go
great
ahead.
Miniatures, by the way. I was going to say this great miniatures.
From the everything, the space station, the space station, which is in various destroyed versions, and it looks so great. This is such neat miniatures. There's a point when they're on the asteroid when, as Julia mentioned, their schedule gets moved up, and they need to leave much faster and blow up the thing much faster. And Rankin doesn't even really show a great deal of emotion. He just asks for clarification. He just goes, do you realize what you're asking? And they goes, we realize that it's very necessary to save the Earth. And Rankin goes, yes, sir. And that's exactly what you're talking about.
That's actually really consistent with actual, like whenever you hear the black box or anybody or like any astronaut, any pilot or any astronaut, when there's some crisis, they're always so cool. They're always like, okay, so this is what's happening now.
Right.
We're going to go for it. That's just a thing that I don't know how they do it, but they've got that built in.
I've always heard it called compartmentalization.
Yeah.
Where they, so what he means, do you realize what you're asking is, do you realize that you're asking all of us to die?
To die, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And I love how after that scene, so they take off and they're flying they're flying away, and Rankin's like, okay, like punch it, we need to like go as fast as we can, and they're all like, but the structural integrity of this, and you could see in his eyes like, motherfuckers, we're gonna die anyway if you don't drive faster. There's one point where he gets so exasperated that even though it's like 10 G's, it doesn't look very realistic, but even though it's 10 G's, he like gets up out of his seat and shoves the acceleration thing all the way. Like, you worthless pieces of shit. Here we go. We're going to get out of here now. It was all that stuff was great. I loved all that stuff.
When they outrun the explosion, everybody celebrates, and I timed it because, like I said, I watched it a couple times. I timed it. It's a full minute of celebration on this movie of like 70 minutes.
With some really groovy
like,
music.
90 minutes that the movie is, and like 77 in the Japanese version. It's like a full minute of people cheering and
champagne.
It's so funny.
So
I'm
right after that,
I'm not talking about the party.
After that is the party where everybody breaks out their sweaters and mini skirts and dances, and our main characters.
Elliot's like, yeah, sure, go ahead and dance with my fiance. Why not?
I wish they would have given him the line where said, what's going to mess up the structural integrity? All those asteroid bits that are about to hit us.
Exactly.
So when you're complaining about that, maybe think about what's going to really happen, which is
if we don't hurry the fuck
up. Oh man! So let's go faster now.
At that moment I really liked Rankin. I'm like, oh, okay, this is cool, all right, yeah. And then the party ends. Oh no, the party goes and he starts dancing with the girl, and he's all like, hey, hey, baby.
Well, yeah, because he gives this veneer of, no, I mean, I don't like it, but I'm over it. It's all good, But as soon as he gets back, it's time to turn on,
make the moves,
double down on the Rankin.
He's gotten a second chance at life. He has escaped the asteroid explosion, and so he's now like, hey.
If he had been smart, he would have gone after one of the nurses to make Luciana Paluzzi jealous.
Oh, is that why?
If this movie believes
not just to actually date somebody, but
if this movie believes that they are destined to be together, he's not going to get this with a full frontal assault. He needs to do a bank shot.
That's all he can do there. That's I think all he knows.
David, I'm shaking my head over here too, man. I'm shaking my head too.
Oh, I heard it, but I think that's also everything he does know. He flat out goes, hey, he's a really bad commander. He does everything but get his name wrong on purpose.
Yes, you're exactly right. You're exactly
dunce. You mean Vince? Yes, I mean Vince. He does everything.
He's a bad
but
commander.
That.
I bet he's bad in bed too. Come on.
And he does everything but that.
Yeah.
And
yet
he literally calls out because you feel sorry for him. Is what he says. Like, whoa.
Yeah. Right, you pity him. Yes, he goes, "You're still," and then he says, he makes it explicit. He goes, "And you're still in love with me." But at the same time, he also, the moment they get back, he goes, "Listen, turn in the report in my name, and in other words, there's like a weird partnership. I'm not saying this is a homoerotic thing. I'm just saying there's a weird partnership, even like brotherly love thing going on between these two that never stops. It's their relationship, I think, is far more important, at least to Rankin, than Luciana Paluzzi. But about all of the background people at that cocktail party, another really fascinating thing about this film is that all of the women are played, and all the women are nurses, okay? Because Luciana Paluzzi runs a big infirmary, and there's lots of nurses.
She's the doctor, they're nurses,
Yeah. They're all models, American, Caucasian models who happen to be in Japan at the time. All the men are American sailors who happen to be stationed in Japan. And so that's what fills out the cast, is just a whole bunch of models and sailors. And it's just fascinating. It's fascinating to watch all of these actors in the background, none of whom are actual actors. They're all just folks who've been put on this. And I don't know. I've nothing. I was about to say it would be really interesting if you had like some diversity in the cast beyond the fact that at least one of the girls is Italian. I mean, you would think that you would have maybe some Japanese people, but no.
Okay, well, the next thing is the well-intentioned intern slash guy they stuck in charge of decontaminating everything actually makes a mistake, but it's not really his fault, because when you put the green slime in the radiation chamber that usually sterilizes everything, the green slime loves that. And it's like, oh, thank you for putting me in the microwave and getting me all nice and toasty and ready to green slime up the space station. So, yes. And that's what also mutates them from slime form into these crazy creatures that we see with tentacles that are electrical.
Which is pretty remarkable that something can go from that green slime to that developed creature in such a short amount of time.
What a weird creature. Yeah, they got a big eye in their face, and they got a bunch more eyes on their chest. They got tentacles that can shock you, so
they're
can
electrical.
shock you to death. They can also use those tentacles to stitch themselves back together, which is pretty cool. I mean, they also spurt yucky green blood all the time. So like if you shoot them, and all of these guys' weapons are energy weapons. There's no projectile weapons.
Well, I mean, projectile weapons punch holes in space stations.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like the ridiculous thing in Armageddon where they're like, you brought a shotgun, but then for some reason there's Gatling guns on the front of the vehicles.
But
my favorite thing
Go ahead,
is that I wonder if they're screechy. Can they make crazy screechy sounds?
Yes.
But I always have the pet theory that we discussed, when we previously did this, where what if they're just asking for hugs?
Right.
Like, it's not their fault that there's electrical, and they're just like, it was so cold on that asteroid. Hey, humans, let's all hug. But of course they're electrical, so these turns out terribly. Because the humans are shooting with energy weapons, so they're kind of like, oh, thanks, humans, for making me feel good. This is really cool. You're feeding me all this energy. This is great. I want to hug you. Oh no, look what's happened to the humans. I burnt them to pieces.
This is actually, by the way, one of the problems with the film, and I don't want to belabor it too much because I think it's not solvable. But the movie makes it clear that the energy weapons only make the creatures sort of stronger, but sometimes it does seem to knock them back and knock them out a little bit.
Well, so, I mean, it's like anything where, like, with enough force, you're gonna. Yeah. The energy is something they feed off of, but the force of the energy, as we're led to believe, the way it looks like these things are, is still going to hurt them or knock them back.
It's like somebody throws a pizza at you. You're going to stumble back a little bit, and you're going to eat the pizza.
Yeah. No, I guess that's right. And
thus begins the new David's new entrepreneurial foray into the pizza cannon.
Yes. The pizza
Who
cannon.
What's the pizza?
Inspired by the green slime. I can even have a type of pizza that's called the green slime. It's like,
no, that doesn't sound good at all.
Jalapenos, spinach.
Jalapenos,
no.
Like green tomato sauce.
Yeah, spinach as well.
Yeah,
I'm gonna make that anyway without pizza cannon. Anyway,
so I've heard it. And as this slime is developing into these creatures, it's taking over the space station a bit at a time. This is actually the part where Elliot is at his most competent, when he's like laying out the plan and delivering it to the people. David, I think if there's any truth to the idea that he makes bad decisions, he tends to make them in the heat of the moment. About like not leaving behind. But he seems super competent when he's giving the plan in the briefing and explaining what they're going to be doing. You know, he comes across really well.
Yeah. Although, you know, the weird thing about this plot is, so it seems really clear that the idea is that they have to, because in Section C, that's where you have the medical area, they've got to get all of these patients out. And the idea is to get everybody out, we clear the entire area, and then we lure the creatures in and da-da-da-da-da. So then why is Dr. Lisa and all these patients still fucking there when they start trolling around with their little car with the lights? It's like a logical inconsistency, or like maybe a line of like, oh, okay, we got most of them out, but it's the last batch, and you know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know why they started doing. Why did they start this trapping thing before they had gotten all the patients out? Well, I know why, because I needed to have Lisa there so that Lisa could be the one who opens the door.
Yeah.
But they should have found a more plausible reason, like, oh shit, we forgot a patient, she's got to go back and get something.
Yeah,
I just thought it was because they didn't want to risk, if they could compartmentalize it, they didn't want to risk moving the patients and such. I mean, not that makes a ton of more sense. But
but the whole thing is, no, I mean, I see that, but like he literally says, we're going to seal them off in Section C, and what's more, we're going to inside Section C, we're going to try to seal them off in an even smaller place. So I mean, I was pretty clear that the idea was you first evacuate Section C.
Yeah.
So that you can wander around without hurting anybody and herd all those guys into that little broom closet or whatever. And then like once you seal them up there, then maybe people can come back to Section C. But anyway, so it just kind of like, it was jarring to me. Like I needed something there. I needed an explanation, and it wasn't there.
Yeah. There's been an argument, and I really don't know if there's anything to this at all. But given how these two commanders are continually courting with their own death, leading everybody else to death, and just making things worse and worse, despite all their best efforts, I've heard people say that this was a deliberate comment on leadership during the Vietnam War. And I will tell you, I wish that were the case, but I just don't believe it. I just think that that's a bridge too far. I don't think that a Japanese director in 1968 was particularly concerned about commenting on, maybe, but I just don't think that making a comment on how poorly the infantry might be led, in the Vietnam War was in his mind, But I'll say,
it seems unlikely.
If you're reading about this, though, that is a commentary that turns up a lot, and it's mainly because people are so flabbergasted at how poorly things go for Rankin and Elliot. I think it's more. I think the reason it goes poorly is more that it's just a monster movie, And there are some kinds of monster movies, especially like zombie movies, where basically things go extremely poorly, no matter how hard everybody's working, and usually you're lucky if a few people make it out. Because the way things kept going wrong, zombie movies were like forefront in my mind with all of this.
I don't know, again, not to make it too much about what I've experienced, but I've worked on enough productions where, that kind of stuff happens regardless. Like you plan really well, and then people, again, go, hey, I did things. Is that wrong? And
I made a sudden decision that's very different from the plan. That's okay, right?
Like, oh, no, that's not. But I guess we're doing this now. Yes. And that's kind of, that's a lot of how humans work. I mean, you would think we're all judging it on, hey, that's a really stupid decision. Why would you do that? And I think for the most part, that would be true. But sometimes in the heat of the moment, you do make really dumb decisions. Or, hey, what if I put this ladder like on this chair that rolls because it makes it higher, and that's all I have right now.
Sometimes you're just taking big risks because you have no other choice.
America's Funniest Home Video is full of poorly thought out decisions of a similar nature. So, when you watch these things, like, again, it is just to forward the plot. But, a lot of times also in this movie, I mean, it's pretty interesting how they discover, because they first discover a body and like, hey, it's been electrocuted. What could have done that? And then it's up to them to slowly kind of suss out how the creatures are affected by this. And then eventually, they realize cold does it, but not before it turns horribly awry and they set half the space station on fire.
Yeah.
Which is impressive.
Oh my God.
Model work as it is.
That blew my mind that their plan winds up literally destroying a quarter of the space station. That was bonkers. Yeah, I have to mention when to your point, when Rankin at the end says, "I want everybody out, and I'm going to go back in and fight these monsters," Rankin once again is saying, just as I'm willing to sacrifice everybody else, I'm also completely willing to be functional and sacrifice myself. He does not have the kind of ego that says, I am above sacrificing myself. He fully expects to go in there and not come out. And it just so happens that his friend Vince also is built of that kind of stuff. And so Vince goes in too.
However,
yeah.
One other thing though is if everything went logically, we also wouldn't get these fantastic action sequences where everything is just freaking chaos.
Yes.
Like when those monsters bust into the infirmary, and just everything's going crazy because there's sparks coming from their tentacles, and people are trying to move patients and beds and shoot them, but the energy weapons aren't really effective, and just it's complete bedlam. And that's mirrored again in the kind of closing part where they've decided, hey, we have to take the fight outside into space.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Space fight doesn't have a lot of kind of realistic physics, but that doesn't matter because they're running around in jetpacks, and that also is just the way the monsters react and the way everything fights and how cool they look, like these practical effect monsters. But the way they decided to do like a kind of pre-shaky cam handheld, complete chaos. Those parts are some of the best parts of the movie, which wouldn't be there if everything had gone well. Like it just devolves into insanity, and it's such glorious insanity. It's really
I agree about that.
What is cool about these things?
Yeah. When they go out, and that's another one where Elliot puts himself, because he doesn't want to risk people under him. He always wants to be the first one to go out, and so Elliot leads the troops out on the outside of the station to shoot a bunch of the creatures who have gone up to sort of lay out on the solar panels and soak up more energy.
It's a beach vacation for the because they're like, hey, maybe it'll be cold in space, and like, no, there's lots of solar radiation. They're gonna love it. Like, oh crap! Well, let's go take them out.
Yeah.
I love that they're blocking the escape hatch. They're like, hey, you guys can't get out. We're all going to hang out here and block you till you're stuck.
Yeah, come out. We're going to come out for hugs.
Come out for hugs.
If you want to like leave, you got to go through us, and that involves our hugs. Yeah.
You can't go bye-bye without giving us a hug.
Exactly. We're sorry it's electrical, but that's the way it is.
It's electrifying.
Oh yeah.
I was just thinking about the fact that if this movie were made 10 years later, there would be an actual bad guy. I mean, one of the reasons why there's no like other than the aliens, because the aliens are dumb. They're just sort of overwhelming. I mean, like I say, in a way, they're like zombies in that sense, because they just keep multiplying. And your main problem with them is if you get anywhere near them or surrounded by them. But otherwise, they're not that special. I mean, you can throw your damn rifle at them and kill one, which I thought
that was the thing. Yeah, not only did they throw them and like hit them, they impaled them with the rifles, which I was like, these guys must be made of Jello if the rifle can just go right.
Maybe the rifles are super special, and
so they're made of green slime, is what it is.
They have a mode. Well, I think there's a mode for. Look, I'm making this up, okay? But these rifles appear to have a mode.
Bayonet mode.
Right, you run out of rounds, but you have one last thing you can do, which is somehow you do this setting. I don't know how, and then you throw it. And it is bayonet-like, and it will stick inside you and set itself on fire.
I think it's that they actually are made of green slime. They're like that guy on the Orville. The one that's Norm Macdonald plays? It's just that they look like they're made of rubber because that's what the suits are made of, but in actuality, they're made of green slime.
So damn it, now, Julia, that you said electrifying and multiplying, now all I'm hearing is the grease. I got slimes, they're multiplying.
Yeah.
Electrifying. Deadgummit. Now that's just stuck in my head. Thanks, Julia.
You're welcome.
Yes. And it can be stuck in your head too. Just
Grease is always playing in my head. I always have Grease soundtrack in my head.
So that song is now screaming across my mind.
Nice.
Oh yeah,
we
there you go.
we play it. We play that stuff in this house.
Slimes multiply, and
all the
it's
time.
electrifying. Just to hear it in Travolta's voice.
I'm sorry.
Great.
Your next song is written itself. Just a cover. You just change the lyrics.
So you're telling me the Fire Shark Productions is gonna venture into musicals now?
Yes.
Why not? Rain writes them.
There you go.
I think Rain would get involved. Yeah.
There you go.
Although-
And my daughter Katerina, she writes musicals as well, so we can.
I would write. I would spend money on a Green Slime musical.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt
This
about
would
it.
probably make a good musical. Yeah, I think it would be fun.
It's already
All
got one cool theme song.
Yep.
Well, with
Anyway.
the love triangle, that's kind of all you need. What you don't have is Burke, the jackass in Aliens, who's willing to like feed people to the alien in order to get one.
Right.
Back
No.
for
No.
study.
But you do have the Dr. Hans or whatever the hell his name is, who is essentially like the android and the first alien, right? Who's like,
Yeah.
life form, let's bring it on board and just let it fuck with everybody.
Yes. No, absolutely. Luciana Paluzzi makes she gives lip service to that idea. Do you realize this is the first living thing that's been found in space or whatever? But she abandons it pretty quickly. Halverson's going to stick to his guns. The doctor really does want one of these aliens, I guess, for study. But it would
it's really
take.
interesting.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when they're flying off the asteroid, there's all of this, all these camera angles that kept emphasizing the cut on Rankin's arm and the green goo, and because I had never seen this movie before, I kind of assumed that it was going to infect him, and that was the way that they were going to evolve, and that the goo was going to evolve into creatures. That would have been, I think, a lot of fun.
But it becomes nothing. Right.
Yeah.
That's just Rankin getting a chance to say that he ain't got time to bleed. He's just, yeah. So I have to say, when Elliot, and this is the major spoiler, when Elliot finally does sacrifice himself, it happens so fast that it is kind of a shock. You're all of a sudden an alien just comes out of nowhere and he's cornered and he's dead. And that I really admired, because it reminded me of stuff like in The Longest Day and stuff like by the way, spoiler for The Longest Day. I apologize, I'm going to say this. Jeff Hunter, who's been a major character through the whole film, just suddenly gets killed and dies, falls over dead. And because it's the invasion of Normandy, another officer has to just sort of shove him out of the way and keep going. And that's the point of it. There's a real sincerity to this movie a lot of the way through, which I find fascinating. That it's a lot more serious than it would have to be. And when we wrap up, we're back with the same characters we had, minus Elliot. We've got Rankin and Luciana Paluzzi now. And, I don't know if the movie's going to suggest that maybe there's a future for those two or not. We really, don't know. I suppose it's a possibility.
But the movie also doesn't even bother with any of that. It's like, man, we had to just chuck the whole satellite into the orbit and hope that that all the green slime burns up.
Yes.
Because everybody on the ground's just still kind of wondering, how did it all go so badly, considering the Earth isn't in danger of an asteroid anymore.
Yeah.
And so they're wondering, throughout, they're trying to keep everything together, try not to let it fall into Earth in a way that spreads green slime, because everybody kind of knows that is going to be super bad. It doesn't even, we don't even consider, there's no even knowing gaze. It's just
no, there's nothing like that. Which is probably fairly realistic, because who knows?
Sure.
If something like that's going to happen, it's going to be a year later. Here, we watched the station burn up on reentry, which amazes me, because I have no idea what the everyday familiarity of this kind of stuff is to the audience of a movie in 1968. Moon landing doesn't happen for another year. So
we've had satellites burn up in orbit already by this time.
I guess so. I guess that would have to, right. And meteorites burn up and whatever.
Yep.
But I'm always fascinated by what is your everyday walking around familiarity with this stuff that we've been getting since we were kids. And I guess you're right. They probably were space stuff.
The time was Sputnik. Yeah.
So, and it just ends very quickly. It's like, somebody give Vince Elliott a medal, and that's the end of the film. So I would like to get our final thoughts. and then move on to whatever endorsements we might have. Tony, is there anything that we missed discussing the green slime? Anything that you would like to hit on?
No, I mean, I think it's a great encapsulation of, movies of the sci-fi movies of the time. Really great practical effects. Like it's just super fun. Again, really groovy soundtrack. If nothing else, please watch the trailer because it's got to be one of the best trailers ever. We used to see it all the time at the Draft House, and every
Absolutely.
time it's great. If you do want to buy it on Blu-ray, the Blu-ray looks fantastic. Unfortunately, it doesn't have both cuts, but you get what you can get. I think it's really interesting and fun. Well worth your time if you like the kind of stuff we do. If you're still sticking around with this podcast, I'm pretty sure you'll dig on this.
Yeah.
Especially I think everybody now, except probably David, has seen it 3 or 4 times. So there must be, pardon me, there must be something there.
Yes, there have been lots of movies we watched where there's no way that I could have just turned around and watched it again and again, and this one actually did bear repeated viewings quite well. So. Thank you, Tony. Thank you for bringing it to us too. Can I mention
watch the director's other films too?
Can I mention, Tony, how you found this movie was Amazon Prime, because we were like, hey, what are some cool things showing up there? And it's just an embarrassment of riches. There's so much stuff that's hard.
Oh yeah.
None of us works for Amazon. Okay, let me just stipulate. This is just us being geeks. There's so much stuff, and it's amazing. It's difficult to pick something. There's so much stuff. So, there you go. Julia, what are your final thoughts?
I'm trying to think if there's anything that we didn't hit that I wanted to make sure to mention. We've talked about the delightful Japanese children waving their arms around as in the rubber suits, which are super cute. I think the relationships are, not super profound. We're not going to win any Oscars for the script, but they're interesting and entertaining. I followed who the characters were. There wasn't like I was going, I could have eliminated this whole storyline, even though the Japanese chose to do that. I felt like there was actually some value in all of the elements. And we've talked about that the models, that the miniatures are so great. Like there was at one point where I was like, I think those are Legos. That was so cute. I really enjoyed the look of it. It doesn't look realistic at all, but it's wonderful. I think it's just a really fun time, and I agree, Jason, that there's not a lot of pictures to use Adam's word, that I would necessarily want to sit through several times that we've reviewed on this podcast, but this one actually have enjoyed it every time.
Fantastic. David, what about you?
So I think that one thing that we didn't mention that I'll bring up right here is that this was used for the original unaired pilot of Mystery Science Theater 3000 when it launched in 1988 and on some Minnesota TV channel. In that original episode, they didn't have Tom Servo, whatever the hell his name is. I never watched the show, but yeah, I mean it was used for that pilot episode, which I think is really fantastic. And overall, yeah, I mean I enjoyed the film. I wasn't bored by it. I mean, sometimes I was annoyed by certain things, and I found some things like really goofy and funny. But it was an enjoyable experience. I mean, I don't. Again, a film that does not deserve the like 22% Rotten Tomatoes rating that it has, or whatever. It's a little bit better than that. Although, I mean, I guess it suffers from coming on the heels of 2001: A Space Odyssey, and I'm just trying to imagine being a moviegoer in the late 60s and seeing that film and then seeing this one, and their views of the future, how vastly different they are, and just the technical proficiency of 2001 and how it contrasts with this. They're very, very different films. So
that's a really excellent point.
Yep. Yeah. No. Good stuff. Good stuff for just a slocky couple hours.
Yeah. I'd echo that. It is very difficult to think about this movie when you figure on 2001: A Space Odyssey coming out the same year, but that's only because of certain things about it, like its reliance on models and a certain kind of lighting, and certainly the monster suits. and yet at the same time, as we said, if you glossed over all of that, this story has a certain verisimilitude. The people are arguing all the time about details that aren't necessary to a movie like this, such as how difficult it is, the various stages that they have to go through from Earth to the station to the asteroid and yada yada. So I feel like I agree with you. I feel like it's better than people are considering when they think about it. But yeah, when we woke up to the need for extremely realistic special effects, that awakening happened kind of overnight. Because just think how soon after this Alien is going to come. That's like less than 10 years after this movie? And, well, no, I take it back. It's like 11 years after this movie. But still, that's like a blink of an eye, and the difference is astonishing. So, but I think if you're us, and if you're people who like this kind of podcast, you forget all that. You watch the movie for what it has to say and what it might be trying to get at. I think 22% is too low. Let's get our endorsements. I'm dying to know. It's been like several weeks since I've had a chance to talk to you guys. So Tony, we already talked about Prime a little bit, but if you found anything weird there, you're welcome to throw it at us. But I don't know. What do you got to endorse this week?
I just finished the second season of The Tick, which I really enjoy. Also happens to be on Prime. I do have a correction. So I, of course, several times have mentioned the book The Lady from the Black Lagoon, and I found out I was mispronouncing the author's name. It's Mallory O'Meara, as in bear or pear, and not Mira. So my apologies to the author, and I should know these things because with a name like Salvaggio, I definitely it's a great way to tell if there are people calling you who don't know you. But I should be more. I definitely like to be more respectful of that. So, but you should also still check out Mallory O'Meara's Lady from the Black Lagoon. Again, that was one of my favorite retrospectives we did. So anything about anything related to that, especially with someone as important, should be something that's on your list. So
fantastic.
But yeah, I'm trying to think what else. There was something else. Yeah, like I said, Millicent Patrick, you should, if you're liking this podcast, you should walk, not run, to go read a book about her. She was super important as an animator and costume designer with some of our favorite stuff. So thanks again to Mallory O'Meara for writing that book and bringing this to light. But also, so self-servingly, I will say, I had our first Deserts of Mars gig in like 4 years, a couple weeks ago. So we're back. So if that is something you want to check out, you can find us at desertsofmars.com, which has all of the pertinent information. We're on Bandcamp. If you have Spotify, we're there as well. And Rain and I's band Rise from Fire is also playing out a lot more as well. We just posted a YouTube video of a brand new song we debuted on Friday night. Yeah. So if music and horror is something you dig, feel free to check out the bands I'm in, because we're going to hopefully be doing a lot more shows in the very, very near future, going back into the studio soon to record an EP for Deserts of Mars as well.
Wonderful.
I'm trying to think what else. Just regular geeky things. I'll have more next week, but definitely check out the second season of The Tick. Also, if you like crime dramas, Nicole Kidman's Destroyer is on Hulu, and it is not an easy movie, but it's got some really fantastic performances. So
what is that? I don't know what Destroyer is.
Nicole Kidman is an extremely troubled police officer who was once undercover, and the story plays out when there's danger from her past that comes back, and then her makeup to make her older is pretty impressive alone. But yeah, it's a rough movie to go through, but it's done really, really well. So. And it's on Hulu if you have that service, so you can watch it as part of that.
Fabulous. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you very much, Tony. Julia, do you have any endorsements for us this week?
I just there's only been like 3 things that I've been focused on. One was the Mueller report, which I haven't read it, but I have it on my computer. 2 is Killing Eve, which I already have talked about, and I just love. It's so delicious and great. And then, of course, the Avengers Endgame, which is coming out this week. So I don't really have anything new, but I'm sure that I can already tell you right now that I'm endorsing Avengers Endgame, even though I haven't seen it. So I'll give you more about my endorsement next time.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
Part 2.
David, what do you got for us?
So, if you have a hankering for more goo in space, and people having and people having bizarre conflicts, I really recommend. Even though it's just one season and there won't be any more, it's still pretty self-contained and it's good. It's the series Origin on YouTube Premium. Really, really, really fantastically done. Great actors, an international cast. I'm disappointed that they didn't decide to make a second season, but it tells a self-contained story, so it's really, really cool. Origin is the name of it. It's like the name of the ship that these people are on, and there's this very, very strange extraterrestrial sludge. So it definitely goes with this week's movie. Then the other thing that I just finished watching was the second season of Sabrina on Netflix, and it's pretty cool. I mean, I'm not a big fan, or I hadn't been a big fan of the way they set up magic on the show and made it all tied into Satan, and it's like really Judeo-Christian and patriarchal, whatever. Mm-hmm. But by the last episode of the second season, you're like, oh, so that's what they were doing. Oh, okay, and it's pretty cool. There's a nice payoff, and if you hang in there and put up with all the patriarchal bullshit, there's a method to their madness. So those are the 2 shows that I've been watching recently as I've been flying back and forth, just downloading shit onto my phone and trying to get through these like ridiculous flights. So yeah, that's what I recommend.
Excellent. Wow, I don't have anything that timely. Although my daughter has been totally loving my second daughter has been totally loving Sabrina. I've been very heads down trying to hit a deadline on getting this book turned in, like about 7 days from now, and so I'm listening to a lot of Pandora. So I do want to mention I went out looking for music by Bruno Nicolai. Bruno Nicolai was the Italian guy who wrote the score for a bunch of like Italian mobster movies and some vampire films and stuff. So I created a Pandora station. I just looked for Bruno Nicolai and just started adding stuff to it. And so I have cultivated this channel out the wazoo, and I've given it its own name, and it's called the Easy Euro 60s Loungerama Station. And I will share it with y'all. I will actually put the link on the Facebook page because I want you to experience the groovy 1970s lounge. I'm living in an Italian crime movie experience that I'm experiencing half the time when I'm writing to this stuff. So I want to recommend my very own Easy Euro 60s Loungerama Pandora station. I have a feeling we're going to pick up some fans. Okay, so that is our discussion of the green slime. We will be back next week with something really amazing, which is the beginning of the Japanese 1970s Bloodthirsty trilogy. This was very, very cool. Everybody, have a fantastic week. I'm so thankful you would be on. David, the fact that you would be on in a hotel room just after you've been flying all around means a lot to us. And I hope everybody has a great Earth Day. Bye, everybody.
Oh, and happy Easter. Good night.
Happy Easter to everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.